Welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, August 21st, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about Gavin Newsom's press account and Gavin Newsom's social media and how Gavin Newsom in this present day and age is what Politico dubs to be trolling his way to the top of social media as Democrats look to a figure to combat the president of the United States, Donald Trump, who has long performed on Truth Social and has done very interestingly online. Gavin Newsom stands to be right now the foil and the opposition to Donald Trump as he takes to the social platforms in a way that is really building up name ID across the country and building up what might be a potential 2028 presidential election bid. Now, Gavin Newsom's recent change in the way that he's adopting social strategy, very similar to that of Donald Trump and his digital team, is something that feels very interesting to me. I think that we've looked at this and we've seen that a lot of Democrats are arguably quite happy. This is not the article I'm looking for, talking about how Democrats are very much in good spirits about the way that Gavin Newsom is really fighting fire with fire. Now, first it started with redistricting and going about his strategy just by combating Texas through a legal basis and through a redrawing of the maps basis, but now we're starting to see it differently insofar that Newsom is also now regurgitating, in a way, a lot of the similar talking styles and social media posts of Donald Trump, replacing his tweets about Taylor Swift with Kid Rock. I mean, these are the things that sort of don't really get discussed too heavily and fly under the radar as things that could really help out build a national portfolio and a national presence that are really doing that right now for Gavin Newsom. And I think that what really tips me off about this was seeing that brand new poll from Politico that came out that showed that California Democrats actually preference Gavin Newsom over Kamala Harris in this state. Now, both of them, of course, from the state. Gavin Newsom has been in the press over the past 6 months, arguably to a higher degree than Kamala Harris. And so this question really that has risen, especially since she's opting not to run for governor, if the California Democratic delegation was to vote, would they give in Kamala Harris a huge bump in the 2028 Democratic primary? And, looking at Gavin Newsom, there's no indication right now that either of them have already started fielding employees and a team for the 2028 election, because we're so far out that just doesn't happen, and that would be a dead giveaway about the intentions of politicians. But looking at, Newsom's recent social media push, clearly it is paying off, and his name ID is absolutely going up. When you think about the way Newsom is going about this and mimicking, Donald Trump and going after Republicans in the same way, it is tapping and engaging a type of energy that Democrats, I think, have felt long without from many of their major Democrats. I think they looked at, people like Biden and Clinton, and to some degree, other Democrats that have served in congressional leadership, like Schumer and Jeffries and Pelosi, and they often do, at times, feel like they are doing good with the positions that they have. But right now, being in the minority, there's been a huge level of discontent from Democrats with the National Party that feel as if there is more that can be done. And not to say that Gavin Newsom has figured it all out, but Gavin Newsom certainly has figured out many components of it insofar that he is able to tap in online in the same way Donald Trump is. And when you think about Gavin Newsom just at baseline, just the way at which he's going about this, he's been in office since 2019, right? So this is obviously a very new social strategy, and it is one that is building up the way that people see him. In terms of how many people are following him online, 450% increase in followers since June. Google searches for Gavin Newsom have gone up 1,300%, 1,300% since June 1st, and 500% since August 1st. More people are knowing who Gavin Newsom is, and more people are starting to like him, and it's benefiting him down the line. When we think about this 2028 race, everybody is making moves, and it is very clear what they are doing. Gretchen Whitmer has a political action committee and is endorsing candidates, getting out there. Pete Buttigieg is going on podcasts and mainstream, YouTube areas to just try to compete everywhere and get more in the online and new media space. All of these different strategies and tactics, even if these candidates are not clearly indicating that they want to run for president, we can pretty comfortably say that they are in fact running for president. And I think the same can be said about Governor Gavin Newsom. And thinking about it, is no secret that Gavin Newsom back in July was going down to South Carolina, one of the early primary states. Very obvious why you would want to go to that state if you want to run for president, right? There's a reason. There's a reason why, yes, Kamala Harris is not running for governor. If she had run for governor, chances are she was not running for president. There's no guarantee that she runs for president. But again, different conversations can be had, but only one can happen after the other, right? And you think about Pete Buttigieg too, Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, running for a third term. I think about these things all the time because they are the clearest indications that these candidates want to run for elected office. Well, in terms of early name ID, Governor Gavin Newsom had that from the beginning. But his numbers here stand to be within striking distance of some of the other opponents in the race. For instance, even in in a multi-way race against names like Governor Gretchen Whitmer and the former VP Nom, Tim Walz, and Governor Josh Shapiro, and Senator Cory Booker, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Vice President Kamala Harris, Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom comes in third. Third at baseline. But without Kamala Harris in the fray, is just a half a point behind Pete Buttigieg, who is in the frontrunner status right now if you take Kamala Harris out of the polling conversation. Which means that Newsom, again, is in this position where because he's building up the name ID, the amount of support that he's going to get is only going to increase. Because right now, not a lot of voters know Gavin Newsom to the extent that they do today. Voters 3 months ago, yes, on the Democratic side, and those who watch the news and pay attention to politics know who Gavin Newsom is, but believe it or not, there's a huge subsection of the American population that does not tune in the same way that we do, does not tune in to politics to the same degree that serial and routine voters and the highest of propensity voters do, and those voters actually do vote in Democratic primaries. And often, if they do vote in the Democratic primary, a lot of what matters to them is how visible candidates are. That's half the battle. And for Gavin Newsom, this strategy that is undermining and getting under the skin of Donald Trump and clearly angering the White House and benefiting him amongst the Democratic Party is quite fascinating. Because I think it stands to be so interesting that it happens to be the governor of the largest state in the union that contributes the most from an economic perspective to the country, and a state that has historically voted against Donald Trump in every single election that he has run in. And Republicans have not even come close to victory in California. Gavin Newsom, who faced a recall effort back in 2021, really mobilized his base and turned out voters and was saved in that election by a mile. Voters loved him in that election, and they keep reelecting him. And it's not to the degree that there's this, undying fealty or allegiance to Newsom the way there was and is for Donald Trump from many of his base. But it clearly is tying and tapping into something that Democrats historically have not been able to tap into. And that is this Trump style of energy that may not be what wins Gavin Newsom the election, but absolutely boosts his prospects of getting through a Democratic primary, of getting to a position where voters like his response because it feels like it's tangible and something meaningful. Because Newsom's reaction to the redistricting ploy was very strong. It was something that now President Obama, Vice President Harris have come out publicly and said, that is the way to go. Fight fire with fire and allow the voters to make that decision rather than stripping that right away from the voters. And it looks like the voters in California are going to back Gavin Newsom's effort. But now that doubled, working in tandem with a very smart and strong social presence and digital strategy that, again, taps into this energy that Democrats have historically been unable to tap into, especially prominent Democrats, especially those who want to run in 2028, is something that really serves to the benefit of the California governor. And, because he's not up for re-election in 2028, very often it is moments like this and times like this that these candidates and these, governors decide that they're going to take a step back from a more public lens and they're not going to be as involved. Gavin Newsom is in it to the very end. And it is clear as day that he has, a disdain for Donald Trump and his administration, that he's willing to do anything to undermine them, to get under their skin, to make a name for himself and build it out to a degree that a lot of Democrats weren't really expecting, but are very much appreciating. And so we'll see exactly how this, style and this approach to campaigning really works for Gavin Newsom, because so far it's doing good numbers for him. So far, it's boosting the amount of people that pay attention to him. So far, it's putting him in a position where he is able to do really well. And that's something that not everyone can say. A lot of Democrats have been wondering, how do they go after Trump? How do they, do this and fix it in a way that might make sense to a lot of their voters, might make sense to the base that would vote for them in the 2028 election. But you can't always find that solution just straight off the bat. Obviously, Newsom has been tinkering with this, clearly has wanted to run for president for a very long time, and has now found the team that really helps him do it and really puts him in a position where he's able to do it. And now he's succeeding. Now, whether or not, again, this translates to an eventual victory in the Democratic primary, in a general election, is obviously, yet to be seen. But as of now, and from what we have seen from the Newsom team and from the state of California, is a response and a reaction to Donald Trump and his administration that feels very different than what many other Democrats are doing, and evidently it is working. It might be Donald Trump's strategy, but it is Newsom who has been able to capitalize on it for the left. It is Newsom who's been able to use this and maneuver it in a way that boosts his electoral odds and the Democratic Party's odds, because voters are latching onto it. And whether or not it's something, again, yet to be seen, whether or not this wins an election or not, it certainly puts him in a strong position for the 2026, for the 2028 presidential election. Should he decide to run, it may not win it for him, but it arguably puts him in a much better position than where he would be without it. And so we'll keep our eyes peeled. We're going to watch exactly how, Newsom and the Democratic Party maneuver and interact and engage in the present day and age, how they push back against Donald Trump. Is there more from Newsom besides redistricting, besides, this Trump style of social strategy? What are we going to see? How are we going to see it? And what will it look like going into the next 3 years? Because we're starting to see Democrats maybe finding their voice, and it might be much closer to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue than we think. And whether or not, again, this is a winning, truly to be admired electoral strategy is yet to be seen, but it's something that's working for Democrats in a day and age where not much feels like it's going well for them. But this in particular, at least online, seems to be helping the governor of California. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026-28 presidential election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.